All right, so let's get started. Hello and welcome to our next installment on this webinar series about APIOps. My name is Niklas Breuer, and today we want to talk about API monitoring, how it benefits you, and what you should look for, and how we hopefully can help you with it a little bit. So, as I said, this webinar is part of a series with today's session and 3 more sessions until the end of September 2022. If you want to watch any of those webinars that we already did, you can go to our YouTube channel, which is on youtube.com/apida. And you will find I think every webinar there, probably not the last one because our recording got corrupted, but we will deliver that as well later. So these are the 3 questions as I elaborated. So the first question obviously is we should look at why do you need API monitoring in the first place, right? I guess, and from a certain standpoint, it is clear to everyone that you need to monitor your systems and that your APIs obviously belong to your systems. Also, API management layer belongs to your assets and your system infrastructure, and therefore you should monitor them. But let me still reiterate why it's important from my point of view. Maybe you will find one point or the other interesting or helpful for you. Then a little bit more on the technical side. If you want to do monitoring, if you are introduced to API monitoring, what should you look for? How do you approach it in a general way? And also a little bit about what we can do and how we can help you with API monitoring with our own products. First and for all, about APIOps. If you're not familiar with APIOps yet, APIOps basically is our idea, our branding of applying practices and ideas and processes from DevOps, so from software development, and integrating them with GitOps, meaning working with a Git-based version control system. And if you're looking at your APIs, not just your internal APIs, but also the APIs that you have in your API management layer, which are the APIs that you publish to the internet, right? Which are the ones that your customers and partners are accessing. Obviously, things that apply to your internal APIs or to your other products as well apply to your APIs, which means you need to be able to test and deploy changes quickly, especially if you need to fix critical errors. You need to be able to roll back. You need to be able to provide certain quality because the competition is so big that APIs of a lesser quality could be a decision point for the customer to say, hey, you know what, I don't want to use your API. I will get that data somewhere else, right? Or let's say you have a partner and your API is not working and your partner is a comparison portal, and then the end customers will not see the right data and they will choose the competition for some reason because the price is cheaper or the data is correct and yours is not, and which might not be beneficial to you. So this is why we're talking about APIOps in this webinar series. And now let's go to API monitoring. So why do you need API monitoring? Well, obviously, the first thing is that you want somehow feedback on how your APIs are used. The feedback you could get, from example, from asking customers who are using your APIs, but obviously a more efficient, and you can you should do that. Excuse me. But from the idea of getting operation data, of seeing how often are which services called, how much is how big is the need for certain information. You can get that from a statistical and historical analysis of your log data. So this is obviously why you need a basic monitoring at least in place to have a protocol of those indicators, and to then generate reports from those indicators, right? The second part, obviously, it plays into the customer experience, which obviously the feedback loop does as well, is finding issues. In the best case, if you spot an issue before it really becomes a critical problem, you can fix it. And so you have less problems and a better customer experience. Third part is probably not that obviously in terms of scalability. So the idea that if you scale your APIs because you need to satisfy the demand, that you are able to have logs about the deployments, logs about the migrations that you do, and spot any errors or any problems, or just finding the right amount of computational power that you need to satisfy the needs, right? So that you can fine tune it based on, let's say, certain timestamps, access from certain regions, and so on. And obviously the last part is security, and not just the security in terms of finding potential attackers, which is not easy to do, especially if the traffic which is coming and the requests are valid requests, but they are in some way malformed, and you might not spot them directly, right? It's not easy to spot. Sometimes very, very customized. But let's say you want, in terms of security audits, right? If you need to show that you are compliant with certain security standards, if you need to show that you have a basic understanding of what's going on in your infrastructure and what the requests to your APIs and the processing is doing. And so for audits, obviously, monitoring and storing logs in a good way, centralized probably somewhere, is a good idea to have. And sorry. So in the end, the idea is to get control over direct lines of communications into your, or indirect lines of communication into your environment. So obviously monitoring also has benefits for your team. So one is obviously access to service data in real time. As I said, spotting things directly, or just giving up-to-date information to, for example, product owners, right? Or if problems are caused, by, for example, not by the scaling of the API and the API management layer, but by the scaling of the backend application. Something that I see in practice regularly is getting timeouts from the backend. And more than once when I asked, okay, guys, we are seeing a lot of errors, timeouts, which we cannot explain, the answer is, oh, we do not have enough computational power to process those requests. So the options for that obviously are either to scale, to limit the amount of requests that can be done per client, which might decrease the customer experience, or to scale up. Either way, you get the data directly. You can see it in your Splunk, in your policy manager, and whatever logging feature that you have, and you can react to it. Something in terms of historical data analysis, something that I do on a regular basis, is a security audit, where someone might ask me something like, have we been hacked? There was a vulnerability at this point in time. Do you see anomalies? And having a good monitoring. Good monitoring, sorry for that. And so having a good monitoring, and also to having the power to do this historical data, that alone is already a reason to have a good monitoring of your API program. One more thing is obviously notification and alarming. So having someone having an automatic capability of alerting someone, right? Like an administrator or developer or team lead or security personnel, if something happens out of line. For example, you find an unusual high amount of authentication errors against a certain web service. That would be at least not the clear indicator of an attack, but the clear indicator that you should have a look. It could be an error by the customer. It could be something else. It could be a malicious attempt. You do not know, but being notified about it, that's the thing that gets you started, right? It provides you the information that you need to look at a certain service, a certain API. One more thing actually about monitoring is you might want to have a separation of duties, in the sense that you have administrators who obviously have access to systems. But you also have developers, and developers might not have like configuration privileges on your system, or they only are allowed to develop policies or processes or APIs that you want to publish, but the deployment and publishing, they also need access for that, because or access to the logs, because it's their job to check, right? And what you could do with monitoring is to reduce the amount of privileges that are needed. And I know this is more like a security perspective here, but there's a good reason why there are security principles like least privileges, meaning that you only give someone as many privileges as absolutely needed to do their job efficiently. And monitoring can certainly help you with reducing privileges that are mostly not needed only except for having access to information. So let's quickly talk about how monitoring works. And I mean, this is more like a general approach. So the question is, obviously, when you do monitoring for any system, what do I log, right? The first idea is log everything, because we do not know what we want to see. And this is an approach you could go, but the problem obviously is that you get a lot of data, but you do not know what to do with it. And I think a better approach might be to first define what are your goals, right? What do you want to see actually? Do you need data about performance, like key performance indicators, like how much time did it take from the API management layer to the backend service and back, right? So how much time did it take to process the request in the backend? How much time did it take to process the request in the API management layer, for example, due to schema validation, some regular expression, some transformation, and so on? Maybe a virus scan for if you are transmitting files over an octet stream, for example. Obviously, errors, finding errors quickly. What type of errors do you usually see? And how do you build efficient dashboards or extract the information in a way that you can exit easily and efficiently? One way, for example, that customers do that is using a system like Splunk or any other log management system where you can write queries and generate reports on certain things. And obviously, those indicators you can extend to security indicators like authentication errors, schema validation errors, what kind of errors there are, certain compliance elements that you might have for, let's say, if you are transmitting PCI DSS data, so credit card data basically, or health information, or something like that. The second part of this is obviously where do you store the data? And as I said before, what I would advocate is storing data centrally. So, for example, you have let's say a log sync so configured somewhere. So your API gateway might actually forward over syslog your logs to your log management or security information and event management system. And where it's stored centrally, where it's secured, and where it can be used for real-time and historical data analysis. And yeah, what other information that we are looking for? So this goes more into the area of now I have data, but I want information. So the difference between data and information is raw data just gives you a lot of values, and the information is what those values are telling you, right? So the idea is basically, for example, writing a query, which will filter your log data for all kinds of SQL injection errors, or all kind of indicators that you defined, which will give you the information if there is a potential anomaly in your logs, where you then can take action from that information and forward it to security analysts who can have a better look at it. So for the process, if this was about what do we want to see, and in terms of the process, we should ask, okay, who is responsible for creating and maintaining those logs, and where's this documented, and is it documented how that's done? This is also obviously a part, because you might need to recreate it, you might to evaluate it, you need to go over this several times to fine tune your logs to the need, and your needs might change. One thing that we also found was for an API, especially, you could say that an API is in a certain state. So with our product, which I will show you, and at least on the screenshot later, we define 3 states, which are the API is running. It's in a running state, which is everything is fine. Is in a warning state, which means that some of its values, for example, the backend response time or something like that, or the amount of routing errors, are at a critical threshold somewhere. Let's say if you have 50 calls and 25% of them are returning routing errors, then you're over the warning state, and you are in your error state already. Warning state would probably be like, let's say 5% or something like that, which means you should have a look, but it's not that critical yet, which obviously depends on the definition. Maybe 55% is already very critical for you, depending on the data and the criticality of the service behind that API. And yeah, you also need to define who needs to be notified, right? Need some sort of an escalation process that you can go for different scenarios. Yeah, what else? So in terms of API gateways, obviously, you can have for layer 7, you have clusters, which means that multiple APIs look at the same database. They store the same audit events in its database, but they will still write to different log files. So log files in gateway 1 and in gateway 2. And so this is why I would advocate a central solution, which at the start, if you don't have anything, could be actually the API gateway manager, where you can select a node and then extract the logs or the audit elements, and then have a look at them from a central point without having to connect to every individual gateway and having a look at it. And because doing that can be very, very inefficient and very, very time consuming. So usually during operation, when you have a little bit of time and you are fresh in your API program, it will take a little bit of time to identify, okay, what are the bottlenecks, right? Where are we? Where can we make this more efficient? And one thing is obviously that you have a central point where your operators and administrators and personnel are logging in, and they have all the information right there without having to go to the system every time and only in specific cases for, I don't know, specific errors, for example, or to identify why certain information are extracted from the logs. Yeah, so what do we do? So we have obviously our Apida API Gateway Manager. The Gateway Manager is a tool which is used to access several layer 7 API gateways or gateway clusters. And we have the capability of performing migrations. So basically getting a service or a set of services, a folder, for example, and all its dependencies, so class-wide properties, JDBC connections, and so on. And bringing them to a new stage in the right way without in a comfortable way, so that you can do or can also map certain elements. You don't have to override things and so on. But we also have for let's say as a starter package is that we allow you to monitor your APIs in a certain way. So one thing is that we get data from the gateways, for example, as you can see here, a screenshot about a Docker gateway, which with a high CPU load, a more than average memory load, and 48% disk space used. Information like that, information about a certain service and on multiple instances, how they are running, and notifications on a dashboard for administrators, right? Over that, we have multiple integrations with Teams and Slack and some other webhooks that you might want with MetaMost over email, and also creating basically Jira tickets if you want to. So we put those integrations in place so that you can connect the Gateway Manager to whatever your preferred system is, and that you have a way of notifying the right people and integrating it well into your environment. And what we also do is we are, since I said this is a migration tool primarily, we are obviously documenting what this system as well is doing, and you can also forward those logs to over syslog to your central log management and see the migrations that we did and pushes to the integrations with Git-based version control, pushes to Git and so on. And yeah, this hopefully gives you more information, more data about your services. So before I do the recap, let me quickly show you around on the Gateway Manager. So for this, I am changing the share for a moment. So what you see here is the gateway manager, and what I can do here is I can create a dashboard. This is the standard dashboard that you can see. So what you see here is different environments. So I have two gateways here, which are in a development environment and in a test environment. And I have different APIs registered, which I could view as well and see if there's any traffic on them, any problems on them. And then you have see this. So this is an idea of notificating operators who see this dashboard or look at it regularly. And for example, that you see problems. And here the problem occurred because the Docker gateway has a certain alarming threshold for memory, and it went over that. So if we're clicking on this node, you will see for once services which are on this gateway. And if we're clicking on alarming, you see the different thresholds which are set. So for example, the threshold for warning is between 60 and 80. And this is why this is in the yellow state. I could obviously manipulate this by moving this threshold over. So for example, I could just move this a little bit further because I see that in general, the gateway is at 70% memory, and I do not want to have more alarms about this. I know this is the default state, which is fine. I could actually correct those down a little bit here. And yeah, if I save this, you see it changed to green, and now it's in the running state. And what I could also do is I could, for example, add transitions. So from running to warning, I could say here, if I have a certain integration, which sadly I did not prepare for this demo, I could now add this integration and say, okay, so please send a notification to this Slack channel or to this email if we are above those thresholds. And I can not only do this for nodes, I can also do this for APIs. So for example, I could look at my service one. And if my service one has also alarm routes, and you notice those are different. So the first difference is you have it different on environments, so development, test, or production, because the same service could run on different stages, obviously, and I want different thresholds. And then I can create a new threshold, for example, for the backend response time. And I say, so running means the backend response time is below 200 milliseconds. And now I have a definition here. So if any of those values are crossed, it goes into warning state. And if I say now, okay, so what is the threshold? When should it go to error, right? I would say, okay, everything which is below 400 milliseconds is still fine. But everything above it is error state. So, and now for development, I will get warnings if this happens. So, all right. So this is for a quick demonstration. Let me quickly get back to the presentation. So quick recap. You need monitoring to get control over your systems. It is as vital as for any other IT asset or any other asset in your environment. There are a lot of different scenarios where you want good logging, good monitoring. So either for direct reactions or just for understanding where you can improve. And to do that, you should define indicators that represent those values. So where do you define goals and where you can measure against? And if you need a fresh start, if you want maybe just to get a little bit of help with that, and you are already interested in API migration on layer 7, maybe you want to check out our Gateway Manager. And if you want any support with that, if you want anything, if you need any consultation in general about API management, check out our YouTube channel, contact us by email. We are very glad to help you out there. So this was the 6th installment on the 6th part of the webinar series. And next time we will look at the idea of API testing automation and the problems that can occur there in terms of APIs and what API testing contains here in terms of the API management layer. And I hope I will see you there. So, yeah, one last thing, you can connect with us also, obviously, over LinkedIn and Twitter, and you can visit our web page if you want to start a free trial, because you can download the Gateway Manager over Docker Hub or over our web page. And all you need is a license, and we can give you a trial license and you can try it out in your own environment, or we can even provide you a trial environment so you can test the product if you want to. So as far as I can see, there are no questions yet. I will give you a minute to think about that. And if there are no questions, I will stop the recording and hope you found this webinar interesting, and thank you for being here. All right. I do not see any questions. So if you still have one later, you can contact me over my email address, for example, niklas.breuer@apida.com or over our website, and I hope to see you again soon.